conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds around the world, and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation on the social media channels showing on your screen.
Good evening and thank you for joining us once again on the conversation with Sola Adesoye. My name is Aonduna Inga, sitting in for Pastor Sola Adesoye. It feels strange sitting here. I always prefer to work behind the scenes. Anyway, I am here and I want to appreciate Pastor Sola Adesoye for this huge opportunity. These shoes are too big to fit in, but I will find a way to navigate through. Welcome once again to the conversation. Sound the alarm, tag your friends, share the post, because today's conversation affects you or someone you know in one way or another. The idea of leaving Nigeria to seek greener pasture in other climes has become extremely appealing to a lot of Nigerians, particularly young professional Nigerians. A report published by Premium Times in 2021 says that more than 7 in 10 Nigerians have said they would relocate abroad with family members if they had an opportunity. This is largely because of the harsh economic situation in the country. Just recently, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency confirmed a report by the World Health Organization that Nigeria's doctor-patient ratio stands at 4 to 10,000 as against the global standard of 1 to 600. It is estimated that no fewer than 2,000 doctors leave Nigeria yearly, with at least 5,000 Nigerian-trained medics currently working with the British National Health Service in the United Kingdom. It appears as though they literally took the advice of Honorable Minister of Labor, Dr. Chris Ngige, who claimed in 2019 that Nigeria has enough doctors, so if some choose to leave the country to seek greener pasture, they were free. This trend affects not only the medical profession, but cuts across. So is this the exodus of a nation? Brain drain and the Japa syndrome. I have a very special guest in the studio with me to do justice to this topic or the conversation, as the case may be. He's not the person. He has a background in history and international relations and master's degree in humanitarian and refugee studies. He leads the community engagement at Connected Development. Busayo Morakinyo, you're welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, I'm excited about this already. And I also like to tell you that we have a special guest. He's very far, yet very close to us. You know, thank God for technology. And Pastor Sola Adesoye is somewhere in the UK, and he's going to be joining us as a special guest on the program as well. Pastor Sola, good evening, and thank you for joining us on the program, The Conversation, this evening.
Well, thank you, Aonduna. It is good to be able to bridge distance and to also have you sitting for me hosting the conversation. This is going to be an exciting time. And thank you, Morakinyo, too. Good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, I am pretty excited about this. Just bear with me, little butterfly effect in my tummy, but hey, I'm going to get over it as the program progresses. So we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get straight into the conversation. Please stick around.
Let's look at getting married. I've seen people who, so young guy meets girl and is madly in love with the girl and insists, look, I'm 200% sure. And then you go to your parents and your parents are like, over a dead body. I mean, that's a crisis moment that obviously needs management. How would you say such things need to be handled.
You know, one of the things that, from my experience with parents who are having this issue of, I don't want you to marry this girl, I don't want you to marry this guy. One of the things that I've seen is that they're looking for your maturity. It's the way you handle the situation that tells them that, look, this guy is mature enough, or this girl is mature enough for this.
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds around the world, and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation on the social media channels showing on your screen.
All right, welcome back. It is The Conversation, and thank you for joining us. Like I said earlier on, it's going to be an exciting conversation and one you're going to take a lot away from and, of course, learn as well. Now, for those of you who have plans to leave Nigeria, well, this will be very important for you or to you, as the case may be. And for those, of course, who are in diaspora, this is also something you'd want to buy into as well. Now, in the course of the program, you can also send us your questions or your statement, your comments, as the case may be, and we'll do our best to make sure we, get in touch with them, ask those questions, and of course, read your comments as well. All right, without further ado, I'm going to get right into the conversation. Like I said, I'm pretty excited about this one, and it's a topic that has been so close to my heart. I recall that at the height of COVID-19, that was in 2020, isn't it? At the height of it, a friend of mine who incidentally is married to a medical doctor, he's a medical practitioner himself, left Nigeria for the UK. And just at the height of COVID-19, she also left the country. At just that instant where there were, countries started easing, measures to prevent COVID-19 and what have you, she also left the country. And the last time we spoke, she wrote an exam, and I'm guessing that she's also practicing right now. Now, what I hear is that for some persons, it's also a route for them to move to either Canada or the United States of America, but they have to start that. But like I said, this is not just about the medical profession alone. We have IT experts leaving this country and going to some other countries as it is. But let me start the conversation here this evening. Busayo, this is not to test how old you are or to check how old you are, but you know the song, Andrew No Checkout song.
No.
Okay, perhaps let me sing it a bit.
Maybe,
Nigeria go survive.
No, man. Our generations are different, totally different.
All right, then. Okay, that was a song, a very popular song in the 80s. And this was even at the time when the whole Japa syndrome or traveling out of Nigeria was not so popular. Okay, but as it stands right now, it has become a popular thing. Now, however, let me look at it. What do you think is responsible for this whole craze about leaving Nigeria, going to other places and what have you? Because as it is right now, it seems as though Nigerians are spread across every nation in the globe. What is responsible for this?
Yeah, so just a little context. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start last year. It didn't start before COVID. Neither did it start after COVID. People have always moved. Prehistorically, from the Bible times, people, God told Adam to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He moved.
True.
Right. So migration is as old as humanity, in itself. And people leave for various reasons. People leave because of famine. People leave because of harsh conditions around them. The children of Israel were in Egypt for 400 years. They had to move out of Egypt to the promised land now. So people have always moved. It's just a reality that would happen, right? But when it becomes concerning is when we try to understand the push and pull factors, right? So in migration, you call it push. Why people wanting to go out? What is pushing them out?
Okay.
You know, pull. What is attracting them in? You know, so most people that migrate now are migrating for economic reasons, and it's not far-fetched from the fact that Nigeria probably seems as if it's becoming tougher by the day, and people feel the next thing they should do is to bolt and leave. Now, it's a good one. It's better than forced migration, where you wake up in the morning and you have to pack just a backpack, or the same way. I mean, look at what happened in Syria. Ukraine,
yeah.
right? Look at what happened, you know, when within a twinkle of an eye, people had to move, you know, that's a very crazy situation. But people are moving from Nigeria because of the economy. People do not feel safe again. So yes, people would definitely move. There's something that's pushing them out, and there's something that is attracting them in. So it's called the push and pull, you know, factors. And quite sincerely, I don't think people are wrong, you know, in trying to move, you know. But the problem is when government, who is supposed to ensure that the system is balanced for people to not want to move, for them to stay, are the ones pushing people out. You know, so in the introduction, you gave an example of where the Minister of Labor, you know, came on national TV and said, if people wanted to leave, they could leave because we had professionals in terms of the medical field, and they left. Saudi Arabia just a few months ago, so last year or so, you know, made an open call, and we saw the amount of Nigerian doctors, where people who, professors who taught students, met their students, you know, at the embassy of Saudi Arabia. I had to take the secret police, you know, to disperse people from taking part in that route. And I say to you, so many doctors left in Saudi Arabia.
Is this, you know, while you were speaking, you made a mention of the fact that it could also be, or you made mention of the fact that people coming in.
Yeah.
Now I'm here wondering that, do we have people actually coming into Nigeria? Do we have people coming into this country who perhaps see Nigeria as a safe haven? Let's come in, make money, live better lives. Is it happening at all?
It must not be a safe haven. There are people living in Syria. There are people going into Syria every day. There are people going into Ukraine every day, even with the war in Ukraine, right? So it's a reality. People will always go to a place where they see that their services are either needed, or if they see they can earn something or get something better than where they are. If you go to the north, for example, I'm talking about Kanu, you know, or probably Zamfara, you'd see a whole lot of Chinese guys there. What are they doing there? They're coming into the country. Zamfara is one of the, if you have a scale of states that are not safe, Zamfara probably rank top 5. But there are people in Zamfara making money from gold in Zamfara. There are people in Kanu, Lebanese. If you go, almost every big hotel in Kanu, you know, is run by either a Lebanese company or someone who is not Nigerian. People are coming into the country in droves. Nigerians are coming back. Unfortunately, some of them had died. There was a very ugly incident last year of the man who retired from the US and came back, I think in Oyo State or something, and he was killed. You know, he was killed in his farm. You know, so people would always come back, especially Nigerians, when they are tired of staying in the US or the UK or Canada. Come back home. Home is always home. People would come back, and more people would go. They'll still come back again.
All right, let me come to you, Pastor Shola. It's hard for a lot of Nigerians who perhaps have not had the opportunity to travel or leave the shores of this country. It's almost unimaginable that you are in the UK, perhaps in Cyprus or in the United States, and you ever think of coming back to the shores of this country. Is that the case? I know you are in UK right now, and you relate with some Africans, and in most cases, even Nigerians as well. Do you come across Nigerians who tell you boldly that at some point in their lives, they will come back to Nigeria?
Well, I have a lot of friends. I have, you know, proteges and all kinds of people here, not just in the UK, but all over the world. Straight to your question, I've had many of them who have said, we're going to come back home. And this has been 20 years. They haven't actually returned home to settle. They do come back and go out again, but to make Nigeria their, you know, abode has been a challenge for them. And, you know, one of the things we've got to realize also is that the context in the Western nations, in the UK, in Europe, is one where many Nigerians who come out here may not even know exactly what to expect. But one of the first things that hits you when you get here is that you're in a country where things work, and you're in a country where things are predictable. The weather is forecast, for example, for a month and 2 months at a time. You can look at your device and tell whether it will rain, whether it will snow. It will be amazing that in London where I am, there was snow today, and that was forecast from yesterday, so we knew. And you can determine transportation, you can determine moving from one point to another, you can determine your trajectory through life. And I think this is one of those core reasons why so many people who have migrated, to countries like the UK, even though they say, look, I'm going to come back home, many of them still have not been able to come back because the home they left hasn't significantly improved.
Mm. Wow. All right. Let's move away from that. Now, what are the immediate and long-term effects of brain drain of a nation? Because at the end of the day, that's the crux of what we're talking about. Where we have young, able Nigerians who are perhaps professionals across several fields of study leave this country to go to other countries. In fact, I heard that Sao Tome is another thriving destination for a lot of Nigerians and all of that. So what are the immediate and long-term effects of brain drain of the nation?
Now, so when you talk about brain drain, it's great to put it in context. What kind of brain drain are we talking about? What is a global village? If COVID didn't teach us anything, COVID taught us that you can crisscross the world and work from anywhere, so long as you have internet. So when we talk about brain drain, I'm trying to understand, is it that, we're saying that we do not have, the brains still remaining in the country? People would always leave, like I've said. And the truth of the matter is when people leave, other people fill in those positions. The problem may be the immediate experience, that vacuum would create. So for example, if a senior medical doctor who has practiced for 20 years suddenly leaves, the next person in line may have an experience of about 7 to 10 years. You cannot compare that to the 20 years experience. But what happens is the moment there's a vacuum, another person fills the vacuum because we have a population of people, that we cannot even cater for in terms of creating jobs for. So the moment somebody leaves, other people would take it. Would come in.
I like your approach to this. It sounded a bit positive, yeah. But I'm looking at a situation where, when we in context of brain drain, I'm looking at it in such a way that, let's take for instance the medical profession, like you've rightly stated. We go to our hospitals, and most times it appears as though the medical practitioners we have or the doctors don't have answers to certain questions. It appears that a wrong diagnosis is carried out on an ailment that ordinarily should be detected, and all of that. There are several experiences that that one can give. But then when you say that there's almost a replacement, and this cuts across even architectural design and a whole lot, the ICT, for instance. And I'm wondering, is this really realistic, the claim you are making right now?
So we have to look at it in two contexts, because when I look at this thing, I look at it from the personality context of the people who are living. They want better lives. They have skill sets that they need to develop, whether we like it or not. Now, so are we going to say that because there's going to be brain drain, they should stay back and not progress in their own personal lives? No. Now, the responsibility now behoves on the system. What kind of system do we have that would ensure that when I wake up in the morning and think about my life, and I say the next destination I want to go to is the UK, there is something that would keep me in Nigeria other than the demands of family, right? Because, that is now quite emotional, because a chunk of people that are remaining in this country, especially people who want to leave, are concerned about the family they are going to leave behind. Because sincerely, the moment you hit 20 years in this country before you leave, that emotional attachment to Nigeria is already there. Even if you leave, your immediate family leaves, your mom, your dad, your siblings, your brothers, your cousins, people you've shared, various levels of relationship with are still here. So you don't actually leave. A part of you, is still here, but you have to now make a choice. Would I continue in my career, or would I jeopardize my career growth to remain in the country? Now, the moment that the government, whose responsibility it is to ensure that the environment is conducive enough for people to remain, so long as we don't have that factor, that's that thing that draws people or keeps them back in the country, that is tangible enough, people would definitely leave. And sincerely, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here.
Yeah.
I'm just being sincere that people would definitely, the moment they do not find satisfaction, the moment they do not derive, and the world is a global village. People, I work in the development sector, for example, and I see people who come in as international development partners. They're not smarter than I am. They're not more savvy than I am. But they're coming as expatriates. And your country, our country, respects them the most. So someone comes in from World Bank and tells your country that in the next 50 years, we're going to have a population explosion. We've been saying this thing from God knows when. Your country does not see you as reliable enough to trust your abilities, to profess solution to the problem we are all in. Now, I would want to go out and come back as an expatriate for my country to listen to me. So when you look at these things, you look at it from the realistic perspective of people and what they have to go through to remain, or what they have to go through when they leave. And if they come back, how more experienced they are coming back, and how we would pay them more.
All right. It almost seems as though Busayo is making this a bit difficult. You want to react to that, Pastor Shola?
But yeah, I've just been listening to Busayo, and I want to push forward certain statistics. If you look at Africa, and this is based on research, if you look at Africa, it's been found out that 20% of people who move out of Africa, to the Western world, move out, primarily based on insecurity issues. But 80% of people are actually looking for better prospects and better jobs. I mean, so this is a reality we're faced with. And, Busayo's been speaking, and I think that this is where the leadership of nations, Nigeria and Africa, actually needs to wake up. The median age in Europe right now is between 38 to 40 years. The median age in Africa is about 18 years. And that also tells us that the strength of youth is in Africa. And Europe is basically an aging, environment. What that also means is that whether we like it or not, migration is going to continue to increase. And, I just needed to say that, you've got people who are screaming and saying, look, why are you going out? Our leaders are saying, why are people going out to look for greener pastures? The statistics does show. And except something is done to arrest it, we're going to see this trend, continue. And so I'm just saying that to buttress what Busayo has been saying, that, look, the facts are there and they're glaring. And until leaders in Nigeria and leaders in African, countries generally create an environment where Nigerians can thrive, this is the Japa syndrome is going to continue to be with us.
How both of you react to it. In the 80s, it wasn't this bad, okay? Even at that, we still had people who migrated for one reason or the other, and we still see that happening right now. But I want us to establish this. Are there people or institutions who is responsible for this? Are Nigerians just to say, okay, let's leave and all of that, or perhaps government? Who is responsible for the Japa syndrome, or for the knack for an average Nigerian, or the desire for an average Nigerian to leave the country at whatever cost? I'll start with you, Pastor Shola.
All right, so let me take you back to maybe earlier times, and let's speak about a country that is focused on enabling its youth and development. I go back to stories my father told me. My father had the privilege of studying outside the country, and he was financially aided by the northern Nigerian government to go out to study quantity surveying. When he was done, as fantastic as the UK was, and as promising and as developed was the UK was, he was more interested in coming back to Nigeria for one reason, to contribute to the development of the country. Number two, Nigeria in the 60s was a country with promise, was a country with hope, was a country where the average Nigerian was conscious of the vision of greatness. There were insecurity challenges, but they were nothing to be compared with. Through time, man and evil will cohabit. But what we're seeing in the country now is a major departure from then. So if we have a generation of people who left the country and didn't want to stay, I had a meeting with a friend, and quite interestingly, we just got to meet and we were sharing, and we found out that our parents were in the UK at the same time. They studied the same course, and both of them decided to go back to Nigeria. There was no desire to want to stay. And it's the promise that Nigeria held at that time that has been lost on us. So without the promise and the hope of a great nation, what do we expect?
So let's come back to you. I don't need to react to the same question.
Yeah, I think Pastor Sola has, said it all. The truth of the matter is the realities of that time and this time is totally different. People wanted to come back at that time. I tell you the truth, two friends I have, and I have an experience also. My dad went to the UK to study in, I wasn't born then, right? So 1981 or 1982, my dad went to study insurance and he came back to Nigeria. I have asked him, why did you come back? Why did you come back?
You're one of those, right?
Yeah, I've asked him, why did you come back? Just give birth to me in the UK. Let me have a second passport, right? I have another friend, the same thing. Is in fact, the two of them, one, his dad was at France, came back to Nigeria before giving birth to him. He feels bad till tomorrow about that. But the reason is because there was something people could look up to. See, where there's no vision, it affects the core fabrics of society. There's nothing I look up to as a Nigerian, in all sincerity. I strive every day to do the little I can do within my restrictive space, but there's really nothing we're looking up to as a nation. There's really nothing, and the moment we do not have that leadership that casts a vision, everybody's just going to be running in circles, right? So even when we had military incursion in our democracy, people still felt Nigeria could be better. But now the consciousness is, can it actually get better?
I'm going to follow up with that question later, but I need to throw this. We talk about private participation in nation building. Oftentimes we talk about the private sector, and I've seen efforts where certain organizations have established foundations to take care of certain things, build entrepreneurs and all of that. So the question is, what is the role of private sector in nation building?
Now, the private sector will do what it can, and I'll say this. So let's use a real example, COVID-19. So when COVID-19, when we locked everybody into the house, a group of people in the private sector came together and they called themselves CACOVID.
Yeah.
Now, the major intention of CACOVID was to raise funds to support government. You see, now CACOVID raised funds, supported government across the entire country. The government that was supported hoarded the materials that were given, right? So after the EndSARS protests, people started breaking into warehouses to cut away food stuff that the government had locked. Now, see, no matter what we do, cut across religion, cut across the private sector, cut across any sector whatsoever, the moment we do not have a system that regulates, a system that is responsive and responsible to the needs and demands and the yearnings and aspirations of the people, the system would crumble. The system would happen. And when the system happens, a train is going to be blown up and people are going to be shot. Palliatives would be kept in warehouses And sometimes politicians will use the same palliatives to give to their friends as souvenirs for birthday parties. What happens is that no matter the effect of the private sector, because it revolves around the same governmental system that is dysfunctional, you would not be able to feel the deep and passionate drive of the private sector to better the lots of the citizens. So what happens is government would not sanction any private company that is doing the wrong thing. Last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a trend on Twitter, something bosses,
Yeah.
talking about workplace violence,
or something like that,
and all of those stuff. And I asked myself, is it the same government that has abused and infringed on the right of people that would sanction business owners or the guys in the private sector when they abuse the humanity of a fellow Nigerian, that works with them? So you see, nothing thrives in chaos. No matter how good you are, look at the ease of doing business of government. The ranking, it's terrible. It's difficult to start up a business in Nigeria. Imagine you were producing, let's look for something here. Imagine you were producing papers, right? You don't have power. You have to rely on diesel and heavy duty generators.
And diesel goes for like
800 naira from about 400 or something. That's like almost 100% increment on you doing what you're supposed to do, trying to create a living and trying to employ labor. Now, would you say to that businessman, if he packs up and wants to leave, not to go? Businesses are going to Ghana. Why? Is Ghana bigger? We have the market. We have the people.
Yeah.
But because the system is dysfunctional, the private sector cannot even thrive. Entrepreneurs cannot thrive. People, small and medium scale enterprises cannot thrive. Have you seen the way these people beat entrepreneurs that are trying to get a living around the Federal Capital Territory?
Yeah.
Nothing thrives in that chaotic system. So those people would leave the moment they have an opportunity to go. And this living may be Benin. This living may be Ghana. I know a whole lot of people that have moved to Ghana, a whole lot of companies that have moved to Ghana. And the moment this begins to happen, you would see the drop in our economy. So you have double-digit inflation.
Pastor Shola, before we go on a break, is this a hopeless situation? Because Buzaya has just painted a grim picture of what is happening. And I'm here thinking, is this a hopeless situation? But I recall my father was in the textile industry, and I was pretty exposed to some of the harsh conditions with which they had to work, with some of the expatriates from the Philippines. I think the only time the textile industry had it good in Nigeria was when the Japanese were, at the helms of affairs in some of the textile industries. But as it is now, the Chinese, the Indians just come in, they do their own thing. And then we have the issues of ease of doing business and what have you. Is this a hopeless situation as far as the private sector is concerned in nation building?
I don't think it's a hopeless situation. I mean, hope is what drives me. So naturally, I don't think it's a hopeless situation. But there's always been this argument about which comes first. Everything rests on leadership. Some schools of thought will say followership determines everything. I mean, for me, leadership is everything, and that's the pattern from time immemorial, even from biblical days. For example, if you look at the administration in Nigeria, there seems to be such an emphasis on we're building roads, we're building bridges, we're putting trains in place, and a focus on infrastructure. But you see, the key thing that's been missed out is actually, and that's what Busayo has spoken about, it's about the system itself. Before this recent, train, terrorist experience on the Kaduna Abuja train, I was on one of the trains. I think this was about 3 weeks before this incident. And typically with me, after sitting for a while, I do get bored. So I decided to walk, down through about 7 coaches. And let me tell you what I found. So you've got infrastructure, you've got the trains in place. And this is where leadership must understand what is really critical in establishing a nation that will create and birth hope in a lot of people. So I'm walking through the trains and I'm finding windows that have been shattered and have not been replaced. I'm seeing doors leading outside the train that can't be shut. So what it means is while the train is moving, the doors are just swinging because the locks are bad. Before this instance, you know, terrorists had fired at the same trains and had punctured and had created damage. No replacement had gone on for months. Now, so why isn't there a replacement? Why are windows shattered and they're not replaced? Why are the toilets not working as they ought to? Why are doors on a moving train open? So it means if a child were to walk there and were to lean somewhat close to the opening, it will fall out. Why are these things not in place? It's the system of maintenance, it's the system of continuous quality service delivery that is missing. And this is where rubber meets the road for leadership. When this administration came into being, I mean, the mantra then was, I belong to nobody, I belong to everybody. And I know people who were guilty of raping the system, who ran out of the country because they were not sure. They thought the rule of law, and so on and so forth was going to take place. And after about a year or so, they all came back to the country because they knew, look, the body language just wasn't lining up with what had been spoken. So again, leadership says one thing, the body language is different, and people can say, hey, look, nothing is going to change in the country. So I believe that if we've got the right leadership, that is visionary, that is self-sacrificing at all levels, that is willing to move Nigeria forward in quantum leaps, I believe that things will turn around.
We'll have to go on a break now, but for our viewers on YouTube, Facebook, on the social media, please, you can drop your comments and your questions, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we get as many answers, many questions as possible, and also react to your comments as well. I have Pastor Shola in the UK, and I have Busayo Morakiyo in the studio here in Nigeria. We are not going anywhere yet, at least for now. All right, we'll go on a break, and when we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Let's look at getting married. I've seen people so young guy meets girl and is madly in love with the girl and insists, look, I'm 200% sure. And then you go to your parents and your parents are like, over a dead body. I mean, that's a crisis moment that obviously needs management. How would you say such things need to be handled?
One of the things that, from my experience with parents who are having this issue of, I don't want you to marry this girl, I don't want you to marry this guy. One of the things that I've seen is that they're looking for your maturity. It's the way you handle the situation that tells them that, look, this guy is mature enough, or this girl is mature enough for this.
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds around the world, and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation on the social media channels showing on your screen.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on the conversation. If you're just joining us as well, you've missed quite a lot, but you can still catch up because there's a whole lot to unpack here on the program today, because we're looking at a very timely, or should I say, topic that a lot of people relate to: exodus of a nation, brain drain, and the Japa syndrome. There's hardly ever any young person you meet right now who is not making plans of leaving the country or thinking of leaving the country. Personally, I know a couple of friends who, I work in the media cycle, and I know a lot of people who are planning to move to Canada. A few have moved already. I know a whole lot who are also planning on moving to Canada as well, among other countries in the world. Please do well by sending in your questions and your comments, and we're going to be answering every one of them. And my guest in the studio, Busayo Morakiyo, and Pastor Sola Adesoye, who is in the UK. We've been having a pretty intense conversation here around this subject. Now, I want to ask a question. Now, before I put out this question, most times we get the impression or the feeling that Nigerians do not love this country, that there's no sense of patriotism. Now, something interesting happened a couple of days ago, particularly on Tuesday, when I saw or witnessed, I was not there in person, but when I saw over the TV how Nigerians sang the national anthem, unfortunately, we didn't qualify for the World Cup. But that was good anyway. When I saw how Nigerians sang the national anthem, it gave me a little bit of hope that, well, Nigerians actually love this country. Now, how can the sense of patriotism and responsibility be encouraged among citizens, especially young people? Now, we saw young people in that stadium who sang the national anthem in support of the national team. And just after the match, perhaps we didn't get what we wanted. There was chaos, in the stadium. So how do we encourage that sense of patriotism among Nigerians?
Yeah, so I'm tempted to start from this point. A bad water, a bad stream cannot produce good water, right? So for you to be able to have good water from a bad stream, it has to go through a purification process. The purification process is the right leadership. I mean, Pastor Shola has spoken about that extensively. We need to get the right leadership. Nigerians are easy people to lead. And let me explain what I mean, right? If you go to Lagos, when Fashola was the governor of Lagos and the BRTs came back, Nigerians, Lagosians formed that line to get into the BRTs. How? Leadership. It was simple. You go it by default. You go, the moment you see that people are even lining up, you would want to join them to line up. It was just easy, I don't know the systems.
So he successfully demystified the whole notion that Lagos is permanently chaotic. And all of that.
People like till tomorrow, if you go to a BRT park, you will still see people lining up. Nigerians just need the right kind of leadership. Now, when you talk about patriotism, the reason why Nigerians sang the national anthem, how they did, I was at the stadium.
Okay.
I had goosebumps all over. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't supposed to be there because we just lost some interesting young people. But I just felt, too much bad news. Let's support the Super Eagles. Now, we saw the other set of Nigerians invade the pitch, took everything down. Still patriotism. Misplaced patriotism is the problem.
Is that so?
Yeah. Now, so during the NSAS protest, I was on the street. The NSAS protest was not a popular protest like how we know protests to be. It was citizens driven, almost no leadership, decentralized, But we saw that whilst people were protesting, there were people who were cleaning after everybody. So there was almost no litter at the end of every protest, right?
Yeah.
But there were another set of young people who went on rampage because the government's incursion in the protest, people were killed or people were claimed to be killed. Young people went to the street. It's still a sense of patriotism. Am I supporting crime? Either way.
Okay.
Am I supporting crime? Zero, no. People react when they are angry about something and they feel the best way to approach that stuff is to react in the way they would want to react. And that's why we have people going to the stadium when we didn't get the kind of results we wanted. Yeah. You understand? Nigerians are really patriotic. In fact, Nigerians who have left Nigeria are more patriotic. I have friends who call me every weekend to talk about what is happening in Nigeria. I've warned them to stop calling me to talk about Nigeria by the way,
Alright.
because it's more depressing.
Okay.
You understand? But the truth of the matter is, like I said, the moment you hit a particular age in this country and you leave, there's nothing that will disconnect you from this country for life. People outside this country want this country to be better as much as you do, sometimes even much more. I've seen people, when the protest for Oduduwa Republic started, I saw how Yoruba people came together, out of this country, and were raising funds to support something they felt was going to work. So when it comes to patriotism, Nigerians are patriotical, very, very patriotic people. Now, the problem may be the way we channel our anger, the way we express our anger, because the moment you don't have people listening to you, the next thing your voice begins to go up. And if your voice goes up so much, that's violence, right? But I don't think we have a patriotism, problem at all.
Okay. When you mentioned your voices, well, let me just leave that to take me somewhere else. But Amina A. Oga, all right, she has, is that a question or a comment? Please, we need suggestions for the government on how to handle security challenges in Nigeria, especially Kaduna. Okay, in answering that question, Pastor Shola, I'm going to have you also, in fact, I had intention of putting this across to you. How did you feel when you heard the story of what happened in Kaduna, the attack on the train, and in the question of this young lady, is it Choma, if I'm not mistaken, I hope I got that name, Chinelu, exactly, Chinelu. I heard, I don't know how true this is, she was working on her papers, had resigned her appointment at St. Gerard's Hospital in Kaduna, and was also on the verge of leaving the country, only for this unfortunate thing to happen. Now, tying that to the question that Amina asked, what's your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction is going to take me in all kinds of directions. First of all, is I really felt traumatized by it. And the reason is because, Abuja, Kaduna, and back is a regular route for me. I still have a residence in Kaduna. I still oversee a church in that environment. I was born in Kaduna, spent much of my life there. And so my passion for Kaduna and maybe other states in Nigeria is not one that can be discounted. So the first thing is I'm trying to place myself on that train and trying to imagine that I once sat by a seat and you could see where a bullet had tried to pierce through the window. Those are realities that has been part of my journey on the same train. I've been, through the stations and I can see porous security. There was a day at the Abuja station at Idu. I was going with one of my assistants and I saw someone who just walked from the bushes and climbed the track and stood on the platform. And he was carrying a bag. You couldn't tell whether it was an official or some kind of stranger. So you see all of that. And so I felt, a deep sense of empathy, especially because I could put myself on that same platform. Now, here is my concern, and in response to Amina's, situation, we must sympathize with the family of Chinelo, and only God knows what they're going through. And we just keep praying and trusting that they would be comforted. But taking Amina's question, the responsibility of government is to secure life and property. Now, when things like this happen, the blame goes to government, not the citizens, because it is government's primary responsibility. Now, let's also go back to certain incidences that have happened on that train. An older friend of mine was on the train at an instance, and there were gunshots, and he, just by his window, something pierced, a bullet. I mean, it was pinpoint. You could see the point at which it pierced the window, but it couldn't go through because the window has two layers. And it was obvious then, it was in the news, it was on Twitter, that, these terrorists fired at the train. And the government's first position, and for those who defend government, is denial. It is to downplay it. It is to downplay acts of terrorism. it is to say, no, it didn't happen. It is those who are in the opposition party. It is those who hate the party that are trying to whip up sentiments to discredit the government. Now, with such a position, which sadly has been consistent, even with this recent train attack, you hear people saying, well, you can't comment because the figures are not true, and so on and so forth. We don't know whether it's real. We don't know whether it's not. Even with respect to Chinole's case, if you remember, when she tweeted that she had been shot and she said, pray for me, there were people who seemingly are noted to be on the side of government who were cynical, who said things like, oh, have you just been shot? How can you be shot and you still be tweeting? Only for them to find out that she died, the next day. And they're now trying to offer some form of sympathy. Now, some conversations, and this is where I'll close with some conversations had gone on about 5 years ago. And in these conversations that I was privy to, there was information that there were camps, bandit camps and all kinds of camps in northern Nigeria with pinpoint accuracy. But every attempt to funnel this information to leaders in the nation has met a rebuff. So the truth is this: do we have a government that is really serious about fighting insecurity? And to be honest, my candid opinion is that I doubt it. We can see efforts. We can also see how long it took to label, terrorists as terrorists. We've seen a play of nomenclature. Oh no, they're just herders. Oh no, they're different groups of herders, and so on and so forth. And it's taken such a long while. People have lost their lives to name people appropriately so that there can be decisive action. So who is protecting those who are killing and those who are maiming? Now, again, if you give credit, and I mean, if I quote a former president who said that you can have insecurity and insurgency in a country and government doesn't know anything about it. And I believe that to be true. So there are too many hands that are at play. And the truth is, government is not serious on fighting insecurity. That's my own position.
Wow. All right. I think I'll be taking more questions. Okay, I'm waiting for questions to come up. I understand I have a couple of them. All right, I have this from Comfort Adesoye. This is a question on behalf of a person who wishes to remain anonymous. It's good to have hope, but what is the incentive for Nigerians who have the opportunity to leave, to stay in the country? Hope is not always a guarantee for success. I kind of agree with that, as much as you're trying to send this up. The thing is, I'm thinking, I've thought to myself that, look, if I were single, I didn't have a wife, and children, and perhaps a mother, I probably would have been on the Japa train as well. I'm being frank with you.
It's not too late. It's not too late. You can pack up and leave tomorrow.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But sincerely, I would say to everyone, I mean, this is my position. And I think if I have the ears of government, I would say the same thing to them. Set up a policy that deliberately, emphasis on the word deliberately, creates a system where young Nigerians can leave this country. Yes.
How will this work?
Set up a policy. See, Nigeria is very populated. Okay. I doubt we're 200 million. 100 million, I can say. Our numbers are not, I don't give credence on numbers. But let's run some numbers. 92,000 youth coppers leave the system every quarter. 92,000. It's the math is simple. 3,000 per state.
Yeah.
Multiplied by 36, about 92,000 of them, including the Federal Capital Territory. Do we have enough jobs to take those people? Do we have a system where they can thrive? If no, begin to export them. Export our brains. Let them go and work. Let them go and gain experiences. Let them gain more knowledge. Let them learn or unlearn the Nigerian way of doing things and learn the decent and civil way of doing things. What would happen is that they would probably voluntarily come back in another 10 years. Now, I say this, and I say it with every, Pastor Shola may not accept, but I will say it, this is my truth. I believe it will take us 100 years to hit the developed status. 100 years. We have not started yet. So it has not started counting. Within the period, we need to export as many Nigerians as possible out of this country to learn a new culture. We're Christians, right?
Yeah.
Moses wasn't born in Goshen. Moses was born in the Egyptian palace, or he was born in Goshen but taken, to the palace for him to learn the palace culture enough for him to be able to also go into the wilderness and come back to lead God's people out. Now, the problem Moses had with God's people was that they had an experience of slavery that Moses didn't have. Now, we need more young Nigerians who are able to unlearn what Nigeria has done to their minds, who can be able to see the future. Because I believe most of us here are clouded with a whole lot of things. Bro, you're fighting insecurity, you're fighting water scarcity, you're still trying to maintain a job that doesn't pay you anything, right? The encumbrance around you being in Nigeria is big enough for you to now begin to think about redemption. Redemption will come from outside. And I believe we must have to play a role, a deliberate role, to say these people, 100,000 of them have gone out. If they're going to come back in the next 20 years, if they're going to come back in the next 30 years, if their children would be the ones to come back to fix the mess, then we should go that route.
Pastor Shola, I'll come to you straight. I know you to be somebody who is tech savvy. And just a short while, Busayo made mention of the fact that 100 years, that's a century, for us to even compete with the West or to developed nations. And that for me connotes a bit of hopelessness, if I may ask. How do you want to react to that question and basically to some of the things, the points he raised?
I mean, I like Busayo's ideas. I'm someone who's open to ideas. So when he speaks about us exporting, our youth, hey, I think it's worth trying. And the positive side to that is that because if an enabling environment is created to allow people to freely leave this country, there's a sense of indebtedness. And I think that it is that will probably turn out to, right for us, that you would be able to say, look, this country helped me. They made a way for me. How can I give back? So 10, 15 years, those people feel a sense of indebtedness and will look to giving back. But, just like he said, they're going to learn, a new culture, a new way of doing things, and they would help to build Nigeria. Now, the 100-year factor, Busayo, I don't know. I'm much more hopeful and optimistic, than you have just expressed. And the reason is, if we look at Rwanda, and I know that Rwanda is not a perfect example, but Rwanda is a country that came out of genocide, of hopelessness, of wounds, and all kinds of hurts. But Rwanda has shown significant progress. I haven't been there. I've had a few people who have gone who have said, look, you need to go to Rwanda. One of the things they highlighted was the ease of doing business. I mean, just the process of registering a business and that entire gamut, of activity has been made so easy. So if Rwanda can go, from a genocidal nation to showing a sense of, progress and of hope, I think it's achievable for Nigeria. Again, when you're looking at the tech environment, there are lots of tech people in Nigeria who are doing amazing things. Recently, I visited Colab in Kaduna, and that's such an amazing young man. Is Ismaila Sanusi, who's doing amazing things, and lots of people are being positioned through that platform. And even with that, you see, so you've got people who have come out of that platform affiliated, who are doing great things outside the country. And they're also looking back to Nigeria and saying, look, we know the value that we got through this, organization how can we make contributions as well? So it's not going to take us 100 years, but I kind of like, the flow of thought of Busayo to say we've got to do things and think differently. Whether we like it or not, brain drain is a reality. Like I said, median age in Europe is about 40 years. In Nigeria, in Africa, it's 18 years. There's going to be a flow.
Question. First of all, I can't help but wonder why we have a situation with government officials who travel abroad for government, for, whatever it is, for holidays, for medical trips. And at the end of the day, they use all of the facilities in these countries. And when they come back to Nigeria, it seems as though it's rocket science to have these facilities in Nigeria. That is one. And then secondly, I'm thinking, is the pasture absolutely green in all of these countries? Is every Nigerian who is abroad doing well? Because if you go on Instagram, you see lots of pictures, after and before, so you begin to feel a certain way, as if you have underachieved. Let me put it in pidgin English, UAD Nigeria, as if you've underachieved. So I'll start with you, Busayo, before Pastor reacts to it. Government officials traveling abroad, using all of these facilities, coming back to Nigeria, and it seems as though we're never going to have this same facilities. And then is the pasture absolutely green in Nigeria? Is it well with every Nigerian who has left this country?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, I've never left the country before, like to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if the pasture is green or not.
Mm.
But it seems green. It's a perception, and that's why I started with the push and pull.
Okay.
Something is pulling you. It's attractive to you. So you're running away from something, and you think when you get to the other side, you're getting something better. But most times it's not always like that. Not everybody that moved to Lagos made it. So it's not always like that. But with more advanced climes is what is called the dignity of labor. So much so that you can be on a minimum wage and you're still able to survive. Barest minimum. You're still able to survive, right? Now, in Nigeria, minimum wage is 30,000 naira, right? 30,000 naira would probably fall your car, for 1 week or 10 days. It depends on how you move, and that is just basic necessity, ability to move from one place, to the other. So I don't know if it's really green, but I definitely know that, there's crime in advanced climes.
Yeah.
But the difference is that there's probably a system that will arrest the criminal. There's a system, there's a justice system that will work. The justice system may not be as slow as what we have here.
Yeah.
So, for example, God rest the soul, Dr. Chinelo and other people who died in that train mishap, may not see justice because it's a repeated sequence. It's happened before. It's not the first time. A whole lot of people have died, been killed in cold blood. The lady preacher, sometime in Abuja here, nobody was brought to book, right? So, I mean, this was within the FCT, right? So, people move away because of insecurity. Pastor Shola has already stated that, you understand, an economy. So the moment they're able to get out there and do stuff for themselves, they're very good. Now, but sincerely, now, I ask myself every day, Busayo, what is keeping you in Nigeria?
Okay.
Speaking a bit of hope, I sincerely do believe in Nigeria. I sincerely do believe. I mean, I've risked my life for Nigeria. I mean, I've gone to the very terrible places where even journalists would not want to go to. You understand? Just because I just felt we needed to reach out to people and make them hold their government to account.
Yeah.
And in all of these, I see hope. But for me, hope is not a walk in the park. It's hard work. Very hard work. If I had my way, I wouldn't do that. If I had my way, I wouldn't risk my life.
Okay.
I've slept in the middle of, where there are terrorists, because our security agents cordoned off the road. But in retrospect, would I want to do that again? Would I want to be able to stake my life out, for Nigeria? What is the incentives in doing that? So for me personally, if it's not even green, I don't blame people. I just let them be. You want to move, you're moving. You're not going to walk through, or try to cross the Mediterranean or walk through the Sahara Desert because you die there.
Yeah.
You have the legitimate way of living. Please leave. Probably when you leave and you see that the system is not working for you, your country is always home.
Now, quickly to government officials who leave and use all the facilities, are exposed to all of the best things in other climes, and then it seemed as though we'll never have them. A good example, come on, the president travels to England to access medical care. But what's the situation here back in
I didn't
Nigeria?
want to go there, but you're dragging me there. But let's talk about it. The biggest problem, I believe, and everything I say is me believing.
Yeah.
I believe that the biggest problem of Nigeria is not corruption. It is a high-level, deliberate wickedness by a set of people to another set of people. High-level, deliberate wickedness. Nigeria is not the only corrupt country in the world. Advanced climes are corrupt. There's corruption in America. There's corruption in the UK. There's corruption in France. Why are they succeeding in the midst of corruption? Why are they succeeding in the midst of that level of corruption? What we have here is not just corruption. It's an infusion of deliberate wickedness, which is the highest level of witchcraft. For you to be able to use the commonwealth of an entire nation to take care of just yourself and your immediate family, and let people who, whose lives are dependent on those little medical services you create through primary healthcare systems, you deprive them of those things, and you say you are a government official. That's not corruption. Wickedness of the highest order, right? We have wicked leaders, very wicked leaders.
Okay.
And sincerely, and that's why I'm trying to be hopeful for 2023. We have another opportunity again to try to chart our course for a better future. It happens every 4 years. If we miss it, we'll go around the circle again to another 4 years.
Let me cross over to Pastor Shola. Anyone listening to Busayo now may want to say he's been all emotive and all of that. But using the term wickedness to even describe our leaders, could that be true? But then I also like to add a question to that. Recently, just a couple of weeks ago, there was this on this space on Twitter, some regional Americans, I can't remember exactly, where certain Americans, Black Americans, were beginning to show some concern as regards the fact that migrants are coming to particularly from Africa, are coming into America and taking over their jobs. So in other words, we have original citizens of such countries beginning to show concern that, look, Nigerians and other Africans are coming to take their jobs and what have you. Should that also be a concern and perhaps a factor for Nigerians to start thinking of coming back, even as you react to some of the things Busayo has said?
Well, I would agree with Busayo. I think that we are led generally by very wicked people, very wicked leaders. There are a few exceptions to the rule who have some sense of emotion towards citizenry and towards Nigerians. The truth is we don't even have leaders, we have rulers who see every other citizen as second class and subservient to them, who see the government resources as their own. And you don't know how deep this runs. That you'd have someone who would be in leadership and he feels a sense of ownership to the resources. If he's a minister in a state or a governor, he believes that everything that comes in is his own first, and then he will then dispense as he likes. Now, our leaders travel outside the country, and I think this is where this is coming from. Many years ago, I was privileged to be part of a trip where, certain ministers and state governors were going to China, my first trip to China, and it was to look at investment, to create a platform for Nigerian businessmen and Chinese businessmen. And I mean, I was looking for opportunities. I was excited about it. I saw it as government, providing an environment for Nigerian entrepreneurs to prosper. The Nigerian leaders, when we got there, the Nigerian contingent from government all came late. um, I found out they were more interested in going into the shops than they were in the forum itself. The key platform where Nigerian businessmen and Chinese businessmen were to meet, which was to be coordinated by the Nigerian leaders, and the Chinese leaders. The Nigerian contingent was 1 hour late. And the Chinese people who have a value for time walked out. And by the time the Nigerian contingent came and they said, oh, the Chinese people had left, they said, well, if they don't want to stay, let them stay. You see, such an attitude is what we see generally reflected in our leaders. Now, there's a comment here, I think, that's instructive, and it's from, I think it's from Fung Shaw, and he says something in here that whereas government officials travel out, they are merely end users of the system. To reproduce a system, I strongly believe you need to understand the engine that keeps it running, just like the iceberg. You can't recreate something unless you understand how. That's the missing bit. And I totally agree with this. And I put it on the screen so that, it would help us to understand their mindset. These guys are not going there to learn how the system works. They're just going there to enjoy it. Let me also add this, that this is part of what is wrecking the Nigerian system. It's called the what's in it for me mindset. Go to every government office. What's in it for me? You want me to pass a file? What's in it for me? And again, that stems from leadership. The Bible says when you see the rich who are walking and mere men who don't qualify riding on horses, it's an error that proceeds from leadership. It's a spirit of error. And so you find out that what's in it for me. Many years ago, a friend of mine wanted to bring General Electric into Nigeria. You're thinking many years ago. And having had meetings with those who are responsible, they said, what's in it for me? And they said, look, you've got to pay X amount of dollars. If not, this wouldn't fly. And GE at that time said, look, through him, we're not willing to do that. And they said, look, take your electricity and go. So that's the mindset. And up till today, that's the mindset of the average Nigerian leader, whether he's, is a governor or is in the executive. Generally, that's the mindset. And this will continue to be a challenge for the growth and the progress of Nigeria. Now, is the pasture greener on the other side? Obviously not. But you see, and I'll try and answer this question two ways. I was speaking with a friend of mine, and they were talking about the fact that in the UK, the average UK citizen is not so interested in education. My children spoke about how they went into class, and day one there are 100 of them, and at the end of by the time they're graduating, only 30 are graduating, and most of those who drop out are citizens. Why? Because they provide a home for you. There's Medicare. There's welfare. So you basically have a system that protects her own. And you're having citizens who are not even willing to work because they continue to benefit from the system. That's negative. However, you find Nigerians who are willing to do 2, 3, 4 jobs, who can turn brown pastures in this environment to green pastures. So it's not so much how green the pasture is here, is the fact that because we can make sacrifices, that's a reflection of the environment we came from. Many people turn their pastures from brown to green. 2, 3 jobs, it's a lot of work, but they make themselves comfortable.
Well, I have a question here, but please, before I go any further, if you're watching, please send in your question and comments. I'd like to take part of some of those before we round up, even as we are preparing to wrap up the show. Now, this is a pretty lengthy one, so I'm going to take my time and read it while you prepare to answer, Busayo. Thank you so much. You don't know how excited I am about this. Now, we have seen nations under repressive rule where citizens have set themselves ablaze and taken other drastic measures to say enough is enough. Now, what nation comes to mind? Now, of Nigerians, it is said, push them to the wall and they will simply dig a hole through it and keep going. Why do you think Nigerians have? Why do you think Nigerians have? We have seen nations under repressive rule where citizens have set themselves ablaze and other taking of Nigerians. It is said, push them. Okay, this was typed in two ways, but basically you get the idea. Nigerians are oppressed and all of that, and they feel will dig a hole, and for them that connotes being smart.
Oh.
But we saw a situation where it was a different narrative a couple of years ago. Is this assertion true?
It used to be. It used to be. But you know, Pastor said something very important. That there's our population is predominantly a young population, 18 years. Now, a little throwback to history. If you were born, kids that were born 1999, you know, to this time, a kid that was born in 1999 is about how many years now? It's about 22 years now, right? So they have never experienced military rule. They have never seen the military take charge of government. They have never seen war against indiscipline. They have never seen the military shoot people. You know, there's no more bar beach where they shoot people. This generation from 1999 that were born from 1999 to this time, they're not scared of anything. They were the people you saw during the EndSARS protest. The EndSARS protest was not led by civil society like we used to know. It was led by young Nigerians who felt enough was enough for police brutality. Now, we have more of those people waking up every day. Globalization has set us up also. People are discovering that a young guy who is 12 years, 13 years, 9 years can be a millionaire by just staying on YouTube alone. The psychic is changing. When I started working, you know, at Connected Development with Follow the Money, my mom called me and told me, how much are they paying you? Resign, I will pay you. Why? She asks me that question every day. What has government done to you that you are fighting government? Their generation feels that the best way to respond to the system that brutalizes you is to dig that hole deeper and try to stay away from government problem and try to be happy and trying to, there's no fuel, there's no diesel, you know, you get a Abacha stove, you know, you get sawdust to cook. That's a generation. But there's a generation now that would ask you the right kind of questions. You have kids. What kind of questions do your kids ask you?
Oh my goodness. You don't know.
My niece threw me under the bus and asked if I was broke because I wasn't dancing at the party. She asked me if I was broke. My niece, I never said that to my elder sister, who is their mom, right? Now we have a generation that they're asking the right kind of question, and the consciousness is growing every day. That generation is in the voting age. I hope they come out to vote in 2023. That narrative is changing. People are no longer happy. You're seeing kids that, you know, are not as smart as you are, breaking grounds, you know, out there. And people are beginning to realize that it starts and ends with leadership. That generation is going to hold us, you know, by our jugular. Unfortunately, we would be the ones to suffer the brunt because the other generation probably at their bus stop, they are their exit point of life. So if we don't get our acts right, they'll give us a run. I mean, I'm excited.
What do you think about that, Pastor?
Well, I mean, this is a very, very critical question and one that truly demands an answer. The resilience that is credited to Nigerians actually is a curse. And, you know, we say we're resilient, and basically what it means is we take anything. We are not engaging. We're not willing to actively participate in leadership and even in the emergence of leaders, you know, in the country. If you ask today how many young people are going to vote next year, how many of them have their PVCs, how many of them feel that change can be induced, you're going to be shocked at what you're going to hear. But you know, you touched on what happened with the Arab Spring and all, and I think part of our challenge, and I just want to put all this there, part of our challenge is that when you look at Nigeria, we you must consider the homogeneity of of the the Arab world, in the sense that, look, the religious wise, they have one religion mostly. They speak the same language, and therefore it's easy to galvanize people together. In Nigeria, we have, 250 something languages, if I remember my statics, or is it dialects that are spoken within Nigeria itself. We have our different cultural groupings and orientation. If you look at what's happening in Nigeria today, much of insurgency, killing, and all takes place in northern Nigeria, but that part of the country is the most silent. And the reason is we can't speak because we're in power. So we would rather be resilient. We would take, whatever is coming. We will pray. We will not demand change. We won't engage change. And this has been our trend. When our man is in power, we keep quiet so that we don't pull the government down. And this is saddening, and this is so sickening. And it is what is termed resilience. The other part is that, we've all learned to create our own culture, you know, environment. So a man who's earning 50,000 naira tries to provide his own infrastructure and tries to provide his own comfort, comfort environment. And we don't really want that disrupted. So the average Nigerian is saying, look, if I get out there and they arrest me, I'm going to lose my comfort. My family is going to suffer. Let me just stay where I am and let's continue to, endure. But I believe that you can only push the people to a wall so far. And I don't think we've come there yet. But, as long as our leaders continue to try our patience, whether they like it or not, if they keep pushing, we will get there one day and something is going to give. So these are my own thoughts.
All right. So much to unpack on this particular topic. It almost feels as though we're just scratching the surface, actually, but so much has been said this evening. Before I take final comments, I would like to take a few comments from those who are watching, wherever you're watching. Let me see some comments. We may not necessarily have the time to take questions now, but Christy Balarabe Kuta, I hope I pronounced it correctly, says, BAM. Sir, the government should provide such privileges for its people to go out to mix, learn, and unlearn. Let's see some more comments. Yeah, Funsho Oladile says, it's interesting that Pastor Shola mentioned Rwanda. My question, therefore, is that can a nation like Nigeria develop that faster under the democratic system of government? Well, we don't have time for questions, but let's take some more comments. I saw a comment from Adetiba, and I'd like to read that comment. Yes, it says, while I understand Busayo's thought about exporting talents, we have a generation that we trained in UK, US, etc., trained by these guys in Nigeria. A generation that bought chicken at 1 naira, but do not have the loyalty to the nation or even gave back. Their children are watching and might do worse. Okay, do I have any other one? Okay, Chijoke Mosu says, they see, but they don't see. Even an end user of a system that works can be so inspired by what they see and experience to find out the engine that drives it and try to replicate it in their own country. And I know that's about leaders who travel and use all of the facilities in this country and all of that. Sometimes my Nasara Noma says, the greatest problem of Nigeria is wickedness in high places. All right, I think we've established that. Can I have one more before we move on? One more. Okay. I agree. There's this from OK Agora. It says, I agree. There's corruption in other advanced countries, but it's not as bad as we have it here in Nigeria. Our leaders do theirs with impunity. All right, I think I'll just stop with the comments there. But I think I'll take my last comment here. Okay, let's do this. Let's do it this way. Recall a couple of days ago, we were all preparing to live our normal lives in the evening. That was on a Monday. And unfortunately, while we were in the comfort of our homes or engaged in other activities, we had Nigerians who were brutally attacked while they traveled by train to Kaduna. And in the process of that, Dr. Chinelo lost her life, a promising young lady who actually called out to Nigerians to pray for her. Some made jest of it. I'm particularly taking personal a certain Joseo, I can't remember his name, who asked the question, have you died? It was the most disheartening thing I've ever seen on social media. I want us to take 15 seconds of our time. If you're sitting behind this and watching, take 15 minutes just to, as a mark of silence and respect for those we lost on that train. Thank you very much. May their souls rest in peace. And we hope that we get out of this whole security challenges in the not too distant future. On that note, I'd like to have your final comment, Busayo, before I go to Pastor Shola.
Yeah, I mean, for me, nothing would change except we as citizens deliberately engage the system. And that's why 2023 is here. Please, if you have not gotten your PVCs, go get your PVCs. If you've registered, go collect your PVCs and begin to, build your base to support whoever you want to support, however you want to go about it. But just make sure that the people you're supporting are people you think can take Nigeria from where it currently is to where Nigeria is going to be. And your right as a citizen doesn't just end with you voting. It actually goes above that time to be able to hold those you voted for to account.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if the person who is going to be the president is from your community, even if it's your father, you have the responsibility to hold him to account. Let's leave this rhetorics that this person is a northerner, we cannot criticize his government. No, it's going to tell badly on all of us, and sincerely, during the first scarcity, I asked a friend, I mean, your party is in power. When you went to the first station, did you take your membership card and they gave you fuel? All of us formed the line together. Bad governance is a la carte. It goes round. We would go through that circle. But if we get it right also, we'll definitely go through that circle. I believe that the more Nigerians wake up to these realities, the more we begin to shorten our 100 years gap of giving Nigeria, even if Pastor Shala doesn't accept that.
All right, that's very true. And to you, Pastor Shala, your final comments on today's discussion.
Well, first of all, Busayo, thank you for saying that we can shorten the 100-year gap. But mine is always a message of hope. I will keep believing in a Nigeria that would deliver the dividends of democracy, in Nigeria that will be an enabling environment. That hope springs from within my heart. It's something that you can't take away. However, that hope must also create an awakening. And what is that awakening? We must realize that in a democracy, the most important office is not the office of the president, it is the office of the citizen. And we can't say that enough. And it's time for an awakened citizenry. Busayo has spoken and said we have another opportunity to demand and to create change. Now, you might have lost hope in that, but no matter how disappointed we get every 4 years, we just must keep engaging the system. The nations that we envy today also had their own struggles and had their own challenges, but the citizenry, an awakened citizenry that was able to hold leadership accountable, is what has produced what many Nigerians are now running away to. So we have our own time to create change and to induce change. Let us do it, and we'll see a Nigeria that will be great. Thank you.
As well for giving me the opportunity to be a host on the conversation today. It means a whole lot to me.
You've done an excellent job. I think maybe I should step down now and just have you anchor the conversation. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And enjoy your evening. All right. That's about the size of the program today. My guest has been Busayo Morakinyo, He has a background in history and international relations and a master's degree in humanitarian and refugee studies. He is the lead community engagement. He's a lead community engagement officer for Connected Development. Busayo, I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for having me.
And I know we're going to do this again.
I know, right?
I know we're going to do it again.
Thanks for having me. And thanks to Pastor Sola for creating this avenue for interaction. I think it's very important. And I like the fact that the church is leading these conversations. We need more of this.
All right. So to all the crew members, thank you so much for making this happen. And well, let's look forward to another exciting edition of The Conversation. It comes up once a month, and you can make plans to be a part of this. You're going to be learning a whole lot. Thank you so much for being there, and do have a pleasant evening. Bye-bye for now.